This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Today we've got another exciting guest we're going to welcome, and we're going to go into a little bit of history about magic, or I should say a place that holds a lot of history about our mystery of magic, if you will. We're going to be talking with one of the members who is a board of trustees with the American Museum of Magic in Marshall, Michigan. We're going to talk with professional magician Jeffrey Allen. So this is going to be a fun podcast. I mentioned about being the American Museum of Magic. That's what where the shirt came from, and kind of get up so you can kind of see this is the American Museum of Magic. There we go. The kind of thing that you can purchase when you would go to the museum there as well. I highly recommend you get an opportunity if you're going to be anywhere in the Midwest to make sure that you go out of your way to Marshall, Michigan, because it is out of your way. There's really, well, there are other things to see in and around the area, but it is a destination for magicians that you should to go and make. It's perhaps the best museum of magic that is publicly available. Of course, I mentioned, Copperfield is the best, but for those who don't have the opportunity to go and see Copperfield's museum, at least you can go and check this one out. So again, I would recommend that you go and check out the American Museum of Magic. Also, many years ago, I had the first time I had gone to Colon for the Abbott's get-together, I went over to Marshall with my video camera, one of those great big bulky things I had in hand, and actually had an opportunity to talk with Robert Lund, who was the original curator and owner of the Marshall Museum, American Museum of Magic in Marshall. And he gave us a tour, and we walked around like that. So I would recommend, if you get an opportunity, to check that out. If you'll go to my website at themagicwordpodcast.com over here, you'll see that video link because it's over on Vimeo. It's not on YouTube. For some reason, YouTube, I couldn't get that to upload over there, but it is on Vimeo. But you can check that out. So you can actually see the museum as it looked back in the 1980s. So, 40 years ago or so, a long time. It'd be great to go back and check that out and to hear Robert Lund talk in his own voice and give you a personal tour of the museum. It's a fun little documentary, if you will, so enjoy that. Also, I recommend, if you would please, since we're doing this on YouTube, then right now, if you would just hit subscribe, just right below over here, since you're watching this video, please do. So please, if you'll just kind of hit that subscribe, that would mean a whole heck of a lot. And also, if you get an opportunity to give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform you use, whether it's going to be on iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio or however you listen to that, we certainly would appreciate that because that helps us to grow then as well. So we thank you for doing that. And so let me welcome our guest this week from Michigan. Actually, he's in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is a little bit away from Marshall, Michigan. But he's going to be talking about all things mysterious in the museum, American Museum of Magic. Please welcome my guest, Mr. Jeffrey Allen, here on The Magic Word. Today I have with me someone who is someone you should know, and if you don't, you're going to get to know a lot better after this episode, because he is someone who has a lot to do with the history of magic, and I certainly love magic history, and I know a lot of you do as well, and that's one of the reasons you tune into this program from time to time, to kind of learn some of the rich history of our art. And we have a museum that's dedicated to preserving that much of this art of ours, the rich tapestry that is our past. And it's held in Marshall, Michigan, at the American Museum of Magic, that was originally founded by Robert Lund and his wife Elaine. And today I've got with me someone who is on the board of directors with the American Museum of Magic, and he's also currently the treasurer for that organization, for the museum, as well as on the board of trustees for the International Brotherhood of Magicians. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Jeffrey Allen. Hey there, Jeffrey.
Hey, Scott. Nice to see you.
Good to see you here too, my friend. This is really great. I'm glad that you're here. And I want to talk about so many different things. And I mentioned about how that the museum actually was started by Robert Lund. Did you know, Bob, way back when this all got started?
In 1978. He just appeared on the scene. When they retired from the Detroit area, they decided to settle in Marshall and renovate an old 1860s bakery into what is now the museum.
So that was just a downtown bakery that had been laying idle for some time, or what?
Saloon, bakery. There were other residences in there, but when they acquired it, it then became what it is, the American Museum of Magic at that time. He actually acquired, I think, in 77. And by April 1st, 78, they were ready for their grand opening.
So did he just have a whole lot of stuff to begin with that he had stored in his garage and different places around the house? And his wife, Elaine, finally said, you need to put this someplace or get rid of it? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, I understand collected since he was a kid. Wanted to be a magician, but didn't aspire to getting on the stage. So decided just to collect everything and anything about magicians and their props.
But he was a friend of magicians also. So he got a lot of people to donate some things, I believe. Isn't that right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. He became friends with them and was very knowledgeable, as you say, in the history of magic. A lot of people looked up to him. He's written several articles. You can find them scattered in different magazines through time.
Seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he was quoted as saying that he really didn't consider himself a magician, but really more a keeper of artifacts, because a magician actually has to perform to be considered a magician, but he is just a collector, but obviously still part of this community.
Yes, yeah, big part of the community. In fact, this may be jumping a little ahead, but he's buried in the Colon Cemetery, and his tombstone says "Among Friends."
That's very well put. That's very true. And he died what year? How long ago?
1995.
And at that time, was there a concern that a museum may not continue, or did he have a legacy, or have this already set up, or what kind of happened as far as that transition and who operates it and how? I know you're on the board of trustees or the board for this. Explain kind of how that works.
Well, after he was deceased, of course, his wife took full ownership.
Okay.
And I believe that she did two important things at that time. First is that she created a 501c nonprofit corporation for the museum. And secondly, she bought the public library in Marshall, Michigan. The library was going to move into a new facilities and the building was available, and she bought it.
And that was right behind.
Yes, and that's the archive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the next block behind the museum. And very few people that come to the museum, that is non-magicians, do not know about that other building, since it is an archive research facility.
So when people who are non-magicians come for a tour, are they taken back there for saying, and in addition, here's something else you may not know about, or no?
No, if I'm giving a tour, sometimes I'm there, I will say the building behind there also houses the rest of the collection. Actually, the public only sees about 40% of the entire collection.
And that 40% is in the original building?
Yes, the two-story Main Street building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the other 60%, even when you go over to see it, you don't get to see all of it because a lot of it are in cabinets or file drawers or wherever. They're really not on display, right?
Yes, that's right. Very well organized in terms of at least the file system, but you don't get to see it unless you open the drawers.
So again, going back to whenever Bob had passed away, then Elaine continued on with that. And was there a board at the time that oversaw this, or was she the person who gave the tours and was a tour guide, or how'd that? Yeah, she still maintained some degree of ownership, but because it was board run, they had the final say. When she passed, then it was a smooth transition to just have the board begin the process of running the museum, and has been now, as we say, since 1978, I think, 43 years. And is that the museum also on some sort of a historical registry of some sort for museums? Yes, the building itself is on the Michigan Historical Record. They put these historical markers on buildings. I think that's the country, but Marshall, the museum at Marshall is one of the locations. Yeah, so among so many other places, Marshall has one of the buildings is the museum, and it has a historical marker on the front of it. When the marker was placed on the building, that day it was dedicated, Harry Blackstone Jr. was present. Oh, wow. So was the building itself considered a historical place that should be preserved because of the museum, or because of they'd been there for so long as a bakery and whatever other kinds of businesses had preceded that? Or, I mean, in other words, is it the building or is it because of the museum?
It's primarily because of the museum.
Okay.
The museum put that building on the map, and
Okay.
the historical marker says that it basically was an early bakery, saloon, and then other things, but mostly now houses the American Museum of Magic.
Well, the reason I mention that is I would think by doing that, on being on the National Historic Record, you're going to be having a wider variety of tourism who are going to be coming from other states or countries who might be looking up certain things of different museums that might be of interest. Because, and I say of interest because that's not the typical kind of museum people would go to. So I'm curious about what how many people approximately in a usual year would come through the museum.
Before the pandemic, we were in the thousands. I can't count 3,000-4,000 a year, and we're only open from April 1 to December 1, so it's not even a full year.
Okay.
This year we're still over a couple thousand, but we're still gaining momentum again because so many aren't even going out yet.
And the reason that you close at the end of December is just because of weather? Or people aren't traveling, or what?
That's part of it, but it's just been the tradition. I can't tell you why we close in December.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm meeting someone there tomorrow for a private meeting, or private
Tour?
private tour.
Yeah.
So you can schedule tours throughout the winter. That's not a problem.
So typically when someone just shows up and you're not there, because you live about an hour and a half drive away, is that about
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's really a hassle, really, for you. I mean, I know you love to do it, and you're very good at giving tours. But is there a person then who is there full time from April to December to April? I'm sorry, you said from April through December. Who's going to be there?
Yeah, there's a person there Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 4. And any of those days, someone is there. Either we have a person that works the desk, or actually the director, Sarah Schultz, is there sometimes.
Okay. And I would assume if there's just one person there and they want to have a tour, do they lock the door so that way this person can show them around rather than people kind of wandering in and out?
It's a self-guided tour, we say. And so persons can come in and read some of the signage. We're still working on that project. But for the most part, persons that come into the museum walk around themselves. And if we want to give them some information, it's usually on the first floor. It's a 2-story building. The first floor, our docent, if you will walk around with them and give them some information. But for the most part, it's a self-guided tour.
Gotcha. And by being self-guided, does that mean they're required pretty much to read the plaques and the labels, or are there headphones that they listen to, or what?
Just read the plaques, read
Okay.
the signage. My plan is to eventually hand you either a link or a device where you can listen to parts of it. Mm-hmm.
Well, that might be an idea of having some sort of a QR code or something on these things that people could scan that, and they could have their own headphones connected to their phone and listen to things that way.
That's the plan. As a matter of fact, Paul Emick was recording some of those for me before he passed.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, he had passed during 2021 over here, and he had such a good voice. Was he an anchorman or a weatherman? What was his?
Weatherman.
He did
worked
weatherman
for the Weather Channel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a shock at such a young age to hear of his passing. And so I know also you rotate the exhibits from time to time, just like an art museum or anything else. I mean, the things that are back in the library, we'll get to in just a minute. But as far as the things that are in the main building, that's the main tour where people will normally get to see things. You rotate from time to time. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of things are still there from day one. The statues, and he has little ceramic statues that he collected. But yeah, we do rotate some stuff. We've created new exhibits through time.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly after I got there, I wondered, as a magician performer myself, why is this in the closet? This should be out and be seen. And So we started bringing things out and covering them appropriately. Cover the windows with the anti-glare material.
Right. That was
And-
what I was wondering about some of the glass. If you do you use archival glass on some of the frames?
Yeah, all the windows in there are windows are covered. The archival glass, we have them in the old-fashioned cabinets that Bob acquired through time.
Mm-hmm.
They're safe in there. It's dry. You need it just to be cool and dry, and no sun. And we have sunlight coming through the windows, but again, it's a UV protected coating on the.
Fires and floods are the worst things that could happen to museums. And you guys had gone through a flood at one time. Is that right? And how long ago was that, and what happened?
That was many years ago before I got there. It was at the archive building,
Mm-hmm.
and the archive building is also a 2-story kind of building. Since it was the original library, there's like a basement part where you go underground, and part of that got wet from rain coming at one point. But we're good. We're dry, and just learn not to put anything down there on the floor.
Right. Right. I know that was unexpected, just as well. A fire would be more unexpected than a flood. I mean, you know the rain is coming, and perhaps you can kind of run in and move some things up a little bit higher. And I'm sure some people were doing that. But when it comes time for a fire, you've not had, fortunately, at this point, any fires.
No, and that archive building is sort of federal style, and it's all marble, and there's not much in there that
is
at
burnable
least from the exterior
flammable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, again, when you said that you had come in then on the board, you were looking at trying to rotate some things. So as you say, there are a lot of cool things that are in storage, and I'm sure you discover new things every time you go on a tour. You're going to say, oh, well, I didn't know we had this. This is kind of cool. So what is it that makes you decide, okay, we're going to have an exhibit about this? I mean, when I was last there, we you had an exhibit then of Harry Blackstone, the family, Blackstone Senior and Junior. And so there's a room that was kind of remodeled and dedicated just to the family there. Will that stay up for a year, or how long before
that's a permanent deal there.
Okay.
And our plan is to do a similar thing upstairs, a more robust exhibit for Junior.
Okay.
Harry Blackstone Senior and Junior were both friends of Bob's.
Yes.
And we ended up getting most of the Blackstone material, props and paper materials.
Well, I know Bob also was good friends with Cicero Pelez from Le Grand David show out in Beverly, Massachusetts. And so he has a lot of memorabilia from that show then as well. But I don't see the same commitment or dedication, I guess, to all of that as I do to the Blackstone. Is it perhaps just because Blackstone is more well known as a name as opposed to Le Grand David show, or what?
Yeah, and we were trying to again preserve what Bob had done. Many of the posters are Blackstone. He himself didn't even hang very many of the Le Grand David posters. We have some. We have the sculpture, of course, the 400-pound bronze sculpture that was in the lobby. There could be a possibility of doing something with that at some point. I can envision that.
Yeah, there's only so much room, of course, in those 2 stories. You do have some room that I guess you can kind of a corner where you can kind of rotate some things in and out. I'm thinking of some magicians who will have a popular show, but they have certain things that stay in the show, but they'll maybe bring in something 2 or 3 things a year that'll be new. And so it's kind of like a museum. You have the standard things, but might be a corner where that you might rotate something kind of in and out that might be a little bit smaller exhibit.
Yeah, we did that sort of for June Horowitz, the first IBM president. Yeah, that
first
display,
female.
First, what I say? First female president.
She's not that
of IBM. And she's from
Michigan?
She's from Grand Rapids, so it worked, and we had we actually dedicated some time to her when the IBM Convention was in Grand Rapids as well.
Yeah.
I just thought it was completely appropriate then to also put an exhibit in there of hers. We have a lot of her material too.
And Now going back over into the annex into the old library that's been converted, and that's really more for research, I guess, as you say. And why is it that is not part of the tour?
It's not part of the tour because most folks that are coming in are interested in the color posters and the props that are displayed and with the signage. That building over there is, you really have to know kind of what you're looking at too.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at something, you might, we have Okito's table there, for example. To someone, it just looks like a table that's been decorated, but to know that it's Okito's, they we'll have magicians come in there. I want to get my picture with that table.
Right. Right.
This, I wouldn't see an ordinary, I say ordinary, a non-magician coming into the museum and wanting to get their picture taken with Okito's table.
Right. Right. Doesn't mean anything then to them necessarily.
Right.
And so when you acquire things, are people leaving things in their will for the museum, or do you go out and aggressively bid on things at auction, or how do you acquire your artifacts?
We are not buying anything. Bob bought most of the material, or was given to him.
Yeah.
Through time. Excuse me. But he was doing that, and I imagine that he was, would go to auctions and so forth. I know that they chased around to different theaters through time and bought up lots of LOTS, lots of movie posters, ad posters, and so he was one purchasing and acquiring that way. What we're finding now is that magicians are retiring, or family members say, we have dad's stuff, magic, are you interested? And we're very selective because we're at this point primarily interested in storing and preserving props that belong to more known magicians, well-known magicians.
That makes sense. I would think at some point you just can't say you're opening the door to any and everybody who's got any kind of whatever, whether it's paper props or anything, because again, you're limited as space. And between Bob and Jay Marshall, they basically had it all, wanted it all, and had it all.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine that there's only, again, so much room there, and you probably have gotten to that point. It's like, okay, we're going to be a little bit more selective. And so how do you determine who is a well-known magician?
Wow. You need people that have knowledge of that. I guess I'm one. We had recently acquired a couple of larger stage props from the Goebel show.
George
so you
Goebel?
Have to know,
Yeah.
Yes, you have to know who they are, and the museum persons on the board or the library person on the board may not even have the slightest knowledge of magician. From Raymond or something, it's just, for me, it's amazing, it's exciting. Or T. Nelson Downs coins or something, these have perhaps very little interest in them from librarians or museum persons.
From the general public, yeah, but for magicians, obviously,
too,
that's
yes,
right, right.
Too.
Yeah,
I'm doing both. I'm doing both, and we're also talking about setting up a miniature magic shop upstairs, not for sale, but like a reproduction of a small shop, and discuss the idea that a lot of magicians started out by first going into a magic shop and serendipitously becoming magicians because they just were awed by what they found. And so I began collecting some props, general props that would be in a typical magic shop, say in the 70s or 80s.
Mm-hmm. Not unlike, I guess, what David Copperfield has in his collection when you first go in, and he's got that little table, which is where it was from a department store where he first saw his magic, and then turns on the light, and then there's tannins reproduced behind him, basically.
Yeah, not trying to do that at all, but we just want to demonstrate that kind of motif, the early magic shop motif.
Right.
But certainly not trying to duplicate to the letter the tannin shop, or he hits a Macy's counter, and I believe he's also got original props in there from the time that was a counter at Macy's.
Yeah, of course.
We're not there.
But yeah, I could see that would be of interest, certainly, if you just have something that's a typical shop, if you will, since that's soon going to be something of the wayside. I mean, slowly brick and mortar magic shops have been replaced by online shops, and who knows what's going to be happening 20 to 50 years from now, of course. But I think it'll be more and more difficult for people to get out and to go to a physical magic shop. And so that will be nice to have some reproduction of a fantasy shop. I mean, wouldn't have to be like Macy's or what. I understand what you're getting at. Just basically trying to build something that would be reminiscent of something, as if that you were going into a shop, would not necessarily to give you that kind of feel, but then again, some of the props. So are you going to be then having some of the props you said like from the 70s and 80s, or some things currently? Or are you going to be having like a wide variety over spanning 50 years of things behind the glass?
Yeah, it would be similar to what you'd find in a shop, not a modern shop, but that time period, the 70s, 80s, with some antique pieces too, just to brighten the day. But it's
Sure.
and perhaps some books, the kinds of things you'd find in a magic shop.
I think you could have just a small exhibit over in the corner or something like that. That would be a good idea, and have some things, like some of the the little boxes that were painted that were over there, and then some of the card tricks and coins and things would be behind the glass, and close-up pad on top, where there'd be, where the dealer would, and maybe have somebody to show you something. I think that's a good idea and a good addition over there. And so when people also are getting interested in wanting to support this, aside from coming to visit the museum, which, by the way, is there a fee, or is it just a donation as far as coming into?
There is an entrance fee, $7 for adults, I think $4 for children.
Okay.
If you're a magician and you're with me, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. And but other people can donate, not just some props that you will consider taking, but as far as money, if they donate like $100, you get a free poster that you do annually or something. What is that?
That's right. We 3 years ago established a membership at different levels. A person who would donate $100 or more to the museum will receive a canvas poster that we select from the wall. It's a photograph from the original, and that's been very successful. And throughout the year, we also have little campaigns or little drives. We're working on pint glasses, a four-piece set. Right now, you can get the Houdini pint glass for a $50 donation, and then you can go beyond that. We have like a larger memberships. A few people have given us the $1,000 level. That, of course, gives you the membership instantly, and then we consider you a friend of the library or museum, and we're putting the names of those 1,000 or above donors, if you will, contributors, on the wall in there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny having a Houdini pint glass, because I recall, I think he was a teetotaler.
Yeah.
I've got a bottle of Houdini beer, which I think, it's just a joke. I laugh at myself whenever I see that, just thinking, as I recall, from reading, I don't think he drank or endorsed drinking, at all.
That's the irony of it. Yeah. There's a whole Houdini brand out there that's got, the shakers and the cork remover and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. So exactly.
It's ironic.
I've talked with John Cox about that from time to time. Now, I know, again, when we have the Colon get-together, the Abbott's get-together in Colon, Michigan, a lot of people come over to Marshall, which is only, about 35 miles from Colon? Where is it for people trying to, particularly from overseas, trying to figure out, okay, where is Colon, Michigan in relationship to the country?
It's northwest, like you say, 35 miles. I can do it in about a half an hour.
From Colon.
Yeah. From Colon. Actually, from Colon, it's the other way. I always go from the museum to Colon. So from Colon to the museum is southeast.
Right.
35 miles. It's mostly highway, a few rural roads leaving Colon, but once you get to 69 and go east, it's primarily the next exit.
And in relation to the rest of the state, it's in the pretty much southern part of Michigan.
Yeah, I always tell people to hold up their hand, which looks like Michigan, point to the center of their palm, and move their finger down about a half an inch. You're in Marshall.
Yeah, just kind of push down a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's why I always talk about whenever I say where I'm from in Illinois, that if you take Illinois and just fold it in half, I'm in the very middle of the southern half of
Okay.
that, which makes a little bit more sense when I try to physically describe that. And so with the museum, one of the questions I'm sure that you are often asked of, what was your favorite item that's there, which may be different from what may be the most valuable item that is there.
Right. Man, right now my favorite item is still the T. Nelson Down kit that I found.
Mm-hmm.
We have his top hat, his playing cards, and a box of palming coins. That was a great find. I just stumbled onto that, and that I'd like to bring over to the museum at some point. But that's one of my favorites. We also found a little file box full of Bess Houdini's private stuff. There's a photograph of Houdini when he was a teenager in there. And as far as I know, according to experts, it's the only one of its kind. It's a cabinet photo. And on the back of it, in Houdini's hand, it's written that he gave it to his uncle. And then when he appeared in Budapest, that is when Houdini appeared in Budapest later in his career, his uncle gave the photograph back to him. And then that photo was duly put away by Bess, and then she gave it to the Larsons, and they were friends with Bob, and evidently the Larsons gave that stuff to Bob Lund.
Wow. Yeah. And so as far as what would be the most valuable, I mean, I know Houdini paper in general is valued, has, high expense, goes for a lot of money at auctions. Would you say that perhaps the Houdini stuff that you have is the most valuable in the collection, or there's some other things you think?
It could be, but there are other things. When this is, we're working on something with this, perhaps. I found a handwritten autobiography of Thurston.
Wow.
Yeah, so Thurston, it's a small little volume, but it's all in his handwriting. It's found in leather, homemade leather book covers. That is a treasure. That wow. Knowing what a Thurston poster would get, imagine having a handwritten autobiography from Thurston.
Was that something? It was really just a diary, or did he intend for that to be an autobiography that he was going to publish?
Yeah, it looks like it was to be published at some point. It's a small. It's not very long, but it's I would say the distilled essence.
Did it cover his whole career, or just the last few years?
Just parts of it. Yeah, just the magic part and who he is, and yeah. That's yet to be revealed. I showed that to a couple of Thurston experts, and yeah, it's the real deal.
They were pretty excited too, I imagine.
Yes, yeah. So we're gonna try to work on that. We've got some other projects going.
Well, speaking of projects, I know another one in talking with Harriet Jacobson, who's on the board also, I understand, who was saying they're working on, or she is helping to work on a cookbook, which will be a fundraiser for the museum as well.
We elected Harriet kind of as our ambassador. She's not really officially on the board of the museum, but more like our greatest cheerleader. I love Harriet. Right. She is a gem. But we are creating a cookbook for next year, and this is the Magician's Cookbook. So it will include recipes from a lot of magicians. It's kind of cool. I think you submitted a recipe too, didn't you? Yeah.
I did. Yes.
So, and I believe we've got some from George Schindler and Lance Burton and others. So It's going to be cool.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of recipes, as I understand it, talking with her, from well-known magicians and those who are not as well known like me. I mean, they'll have some good, but it'll be all kinds of things from appetizers to desserts. So I'm looking forward to that. And so if somebody is interested in contributing or has a recipe they would like to contribute, then drop an email to me and I'll make sure that Harriet gets it. You can send it to me at scott@themagicwordpodcast.com, and I'll make sure that she gets it, and you'll be credited for that too. But again, I know you're trying to do some different fundraisers from time to time, because again, with only just a few thousand people who are coming in per year, that's not enough really, I would think, to keep a building like this going with all the lights and air conditioning and the climate control and everything that you need. So it does have to be supplemented then by benefactors, nice donors who are helping to keep this going.
Yeah, and honestly, we have other things, the museum grants and so forth. We do apply for state art grants,
Mm-hmm.
and those have been given to the museum in the past. And actually, currently, we receive funds from the state or from different organizations that support museum and the arts.
Okay, good. And I mentioned about some of the things that you have, like a Houdini and others, that would be pretty expensive. And so you've got to have, I would imagine, pretty good insurance on that because of potential fire and floods and everything. So again, that'd be another expense that has to be offset. What would be one of the other questions? I mean, I want to make sure I kind of got everything covered that people normally ask. And when they go through there, what would be a typical question you get pretty much every time you go take someone on a tour?
Are these real?
Really?
Yeah. Was
Okay.
this really, Houdini's box? Yeah, it really was. He really was. And we have, as you know, we have the cans, the brass buckets that he used
Filled
for
water.
filling the
Water,
the milk can and the water torture, as I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And the box that they travel in, the crate, with the lock, the hasp on the front of it, and Houdini's stencil on the top of it. These are all the real thing. Yeah. So is this really his? Yeah.
It's interesting because when you would go to the Guggenheim or to Museum of Modern Art or the Tate Museum or whatever, you don't look at something on the wall and say, is that a real Warhol? Is that a real Picasso? So you're going to a museum. I understand, why would you question the authenticity of that? That's a strange question to me.
Well, especially magicians, some rumors about is this really his? Did he really use this in the show and those kinds of things?
I guess it kind of makes sense. I think magicians in general are pretty much skeptics. That's true. Other kind of questions? Anything else that people have?
Well, when they see the archive, we have 35 filing cabinets full of ephemera or paper material on magicians, known and relatively unknown, and some unknown magicians through time. Bob collected all those pieces. And the question that comes up there is, am I in the file cabinet?
And usually people are. I think they're surprised to find they are in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall whenever I had first gone to the museum, and that was in the late 80s. It was, I believe, mid 80s, anyhow, somewhere in the 80s. And I asked that question. He said, "Take a look." And sure enough, I had stuff is in there. I thought, how did you get that? And why is it in there? He did collect everything, every little piece of paper. Yeah. I had some letters that was written back and forth between Phil Wilmarth and myself. And I don't know how he got those, Wow.
The original plan, as far as I know, is that he would find something about a magician, maybe an article in the newspaper while they were on vacation, put it in a miscellaneous folder, and then if he found two more pieces on that same magician, they would create a file folder for that one.
Okay.
So you have to have 3 pieces in the museum file folder to have your own folder, 3 or more.
Okay.
The odd thing is he only had 2 in mine. Of course, when I became a board member, I put the 3rd one in. It's in the database. We show when it was added, and by the way, that I've reactivated that file. That was one of the things I really wanted to do. So if you become a member of the museum and you're also a member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians, you can submit your ephemera material, and we'll create a new file folder for you. That is also true if you become a lifetime member of IBM. A lifetime membership in IBM will also get you automatic entrance into that file system. Again, it's recorded as being added now rather than the historic kind of thing where the file folders have your name typed on the little label by Bob himself.
So as a member of the Board of Trustees for the International Brotherhood of Magicians, they still have two people on that serve 3 years, and then every year they go off and they get a couple more people to replace that. Is that right? You're just finishing up your 2 year, or are you just in the middle of your 2 year
No,
period?
I'm in my first year of my 3 year.
Oh, 3 years. Sorry. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So was that one of the things?
Go ahead.
Was that one of the things that you had talked about or had proposed to the IBM of saying we will add this as another benefit for life membership in the IBM?
Yeah, I'm on the subcommittee for the life membership, and we were discussing, opportunities or perks for being a lifetime member. Mm-hmm. And I said, why don't we do that? I talked to the board at the museum, and they were fine with it.
Right.
So, yeah, lifetime member, automatic.
I did want to ask, go back for just a second about the board. I came in and out of my head earlier, and I forgot to ask about that. That is, who makes up the board? As I recall, at some point, the majority of the board were non-magicians. They were really more business leaders, I guess, who were looking at it from a business standpoint, as opposed to those who really understood the history and what we're doing and why we're doing this. Is that still pretty much the case, or is it half and half, or what's the makeup of the board, and how many people are there?
Currently, I think there are 9 on the board.
Okay.
A couple librarians, businessman, trying to think of. I am on there as a magician, and I'm a certified librarian too.
Okay.
So and the historian. So I'm sort of the all of it. We have three magicians, I guess, that would be considered magicians.
Mm-hmm.
One performing full time. That's me, and that's the current makeup. In the past, as you said, yes, there were a lot of museum folks, and one of them was a provost of their university, and they didn't really have the knowledge about the content. It was more about how to preserve it and what are we going to do with this stuff. But they didn't have any point of reference for the magical part of it.
Really didn't have a vision, as I recall, back then. And so it was difficult to try to move the museum forward with the direction that it should be going, and needed to have a magician or two, I think, on the board to kind of keep the rudder going in the right direction there. So
yeah.
It sounds like it has. Well, the kind of performances that you do then also, I know you do a lot of corporate work then as well. Is it mainly kind of stand-up comedy magic? You do illusions, do close-up, or a little bit of everything, birthday parties?
I do everything, yeah.
Okay.
And travel around the country actually doing this.
Mm-hmm. Is that your full-time job that you're working?
That's it.
Yep. Yeah. And so when I say you're doing illusions, are you doing like doves and rabbits, or livestock, or do you do sub-trunk and zigzag, or
dollhouse, yeah. So we recently did a stage show, and it was called Jeffrey Allen and the Best of His Friends, and I invited 3 of the local magicians here in Grand Rapids, and had them come in and do their best trick. So it was the best of his friends.
Oh,
that was how that went.
Was that a holiday show that you did?
It was pre-holiday. It was just before the Halloween time. Mm-hmm. It was really about a return to my hometown theater, because I had performed there when I was in high school. And we're talking about doing something last year as sort of an anniversary return to hometown show. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Allen Comes Home. Yeah. And the pandemic stopped that. So we rescheduled it for this year and just did that. It was on the 29th of October, one night. And I did some stage illusions there, as well as some of our parlor tricks that we can do at a stage level. And the theater there seats about 400.
There used to be a show then that was up in near Midland, Michigan, that Gene Anderson was involved with. You know what I'm talking about? I went up there one year with Don and Joyce Weiberg, and we saw Michael Finney and Gene Anderson, and did I say George Kimmerer? I meant to say Gene Anderson. Yeah, Gene Anderson and Bob Plunk, I think, Bob Blanc, and some other people, who were involved up there. Do you know what I'm talking about? In that show was an annual show.
I don't know, other than we have a thing called Michigan Magic Day, which
No.
is hosted by the 9 I.B.M rings in Michigan, but I don't know what that other show was.
Okay. Yeah, it was at, I want to say it was in Midland, Michigan, and it was maybe a weekend kind of a thing they were doing annually of some sort of a fundraiser. I thought you might know something about that, but tell me more about the Michigan Magic Day.
As I said, Michigan Magic Day was founded by the multiple rings in Michigan. It's hosted every year by one of the rings, and we bring in a headliner and some other magicians and lectures, dealer room, kind of like a one-day convention.
Mm-hmm.
That also is the time that we present the Michigan Magic Hall of Fame. And
Mm-hmm.
because of the pandemic, again, for the last 2 years, we've been unable to meet in person with a large number of people like that and in a good location.
Mm-hmm.
So we've still maintained the Michigan Magic Day Hall of Fame. Behind me is the setup for the Blackstone when we inducted them last year. Harry Blackstone Sr., Harry Blackstone Jr., and Gay received the Michigan Magic Hall of Fame. I think you attended that one.
Yes. Right.
And then this year's Michigan Magic Hall of Fame was Franz Ferrari and Percy Abbott.
Oh.
They were both put in there. And their name is affixed on a mirror top hat. It's an image of a top hat on a mirror. And that's placed on a larger black kind of plexiglass top hat. And it hangs in the museum, on the wall of the museum. But it's an honor to be on the Michigan Magic Hall of Fame. But that's part of the Michigan Magic Day.
So that's a rotating thing. I mean, when someone gets it, do they take that with them, or does that just immediately go back on the wall?
That goes back on the wall, and we give them a smaller representation of the plaque.
Because I've seen that. As I recall, Al the Only got that a few years back too.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a couple of the conditions are you have to be from Michigan originally,
right,
and have made a contribution, a significant contribution to magic. And
well,
obviously,
got a lot of people there.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit harder because, the people don't know some of the ones that from the past. But this year's or coming next year, we've got them selected already. It's a good choice.
Do you always have 2 people, or you just have one?
That depends. It's been 3. Usually one posthumous and or at least one, and in last year was 2, and then 1 living person.
Well, if you keep going through them like that, then I would think you would start to run out pretty quick.
Yeah.
If you're going 2 or 3 a year as opposed to 1 a year.
They started at about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan Magic Day, however, is over 50 years.
Okay. And that's close up in stage for the day.
Yes.
And do they have contests on that also?
No.
Okay.
No.
I post that on the convention guide. It's on the magicwordpodcast.com. Which you can, for listeners who want to check the dates on that, we'll always put that up as well. Because I know
this year
it's
April 8th and 9th.
April 8th and 9th?
April 8th and 9th, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't got a location yet, but I think we have a performer.
Okay. So that's funny. You've got the dates planned, but you don't have the location because typically you need to find a hotel or a venue for that. So you got the dates, but not sure. You know what city even it's going to be?
Maybe Ann Arbor.
Maybe. Okay. So you don't know for sure. Okay. I suspect since you've been doing it for 50 years, you probably got some places you normally go to from year to year.
Yeah, everyone knows, I just said, here's the date, you put it aside, get ready, we'll do something.
Do you attend a lot of, go ahead.
I'm also the territorial vice president for IBM for Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I, get in touch with the groups all the time, the rings, and they all know.
Yeah. I was about to ask if you attend a lot of other conventions. Obviously, with the IBM, you attend the International Convention, as well as the Michigan Magic Day, and then the Abbott's Get Together. Are there other conventions you would attend from time to time around the country?
I do. In 2020, I started out going to Winter Carnival in Pigeon Forge with the plan to attend every convention that year. But then we got down. Yeah, I really was planning to go to all of them. Mm-hmm. As many as I can. There are a couple of overlaps. I remember being at Magic Live and having to go either leave Magic Live or leave Colon to go to Magic Live, and vice versa. You know, because they were the same week.
Very close together. Yeah, I asked Stan about that, and he said because he has to deal with the hotel, and there are only certain dates that the hotel has weekends available for him for that large of a convention. He said you should talk with Greg Bordner. Said he basically owns the town. I mean, that could be any weekend. I mean, he's got more flexibility than I do. You know, he said, have Greg change his date. I can't change mine, you know.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No,
that's just so. I mean, that is like, you look at any magician's calendar that attends Abbott's, and that week is blocked out.
The first week of August. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way. So I was leaving Orleans, 3 years ago now, 2 years ago when I was out at Magic Live, and Matt King says, "Where are you going?" You know, it was Wednesday night. I said, "I got to get back to Abbott's." Oh, you know, because I'm dedicated to the Colon.
Well, I remember talking to Steve Chesaday also one time and seeing him at Abbott's. I'm sorry, at the Magic Live, and I was standing in line on Sunday to register Sunday afternoon, and he had just posted on Facebook the night before where he and Mark Holstein and all the stage crew were tearing down the stage and everything, and I thought, well, if he's coming at all to Magic Live, he's going to be late, and it's like, you're here. I mean, you were just there like 12 hours ago. He said, yeah, I took the red eye. He said, I haven't slept at all after it was over. And I jetted right here and got a car and, didn't want to miss any Magic Live either. That's a commitment.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, I tend to, as many as I can, whatever I can.
Well, I do see it a lot. And that's why I was asking. It seems like I go to a lot, and you as well. And I'm not going to be able to make the SAM convention next year because I've got a conflict. I assume you're going to that in Vegas?
Well, yeah, there's a subset, the All Things Magic group is doing a miniature thing, and
okay,
asked to go to that. Wow, yeah, it's almost here.
That's right. That's right. And then
Magi Fest, is right around the corner again.
In Columbus, exactly.
Yep, and then Magic Live in May this year, I think.
That's correct. Magic Live is going to be happening, and then of course Blackpool, I believe, in late February. I believe
we have Michigan Magic Day in April.
And then the 4F convention is going to be later in April, which will be the 50th anniversary. It's been postponed for the last 2 years, and so that's going to be a big event. Of course, Obi having passed this last year in 21, so he would. It's going to be kind of, I'm sure, in memory of him. But we're going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary of the 4F convention, which is going to be pretty cool.
Did you get one of those 4F books? Do you have the book on? I have one. It's a really cool. I don't know who even published that, but in the back is a chart, almost like a spreadsheet of all the attendees.
I think I've got all the books that have been published by the 4F. I've got a trick in one of them. I think H&R Magic Books, I believe, had published that. Yeah. So there's another guy, John Miller, has traditionally kept up a spreadsheet. So from year to year, who has attended, how many years they've been there, what years they were there, who was the guest of honor, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, they keep pretty good records over the years.
Of that I'm consulting that regularly. I don't know why, but I checked to see, were they at 4F? Yeah.
And then of course we're going to be in Atlanta for the IBM convention, and that's over the 4th of July. What are the dates for that then, Jeffrey?
It's the week after the 4th of July, whatever that.
Okay.
7, 8, 9, or 9 through 11 or something. Yeah.
Traditionally, the SAM has their convention after the IBM. And so I'm curious if this year, which they had their SAM convention also in January of 2020. And so now in 2022, they're going to be having that again. I'm just wondering if they're going to continue to keep that in January, or they're going to go back to July. But I know you're not on the board.
That would be helpful for me. No, I'm an SAM member though. But I don't know. I would like to think that they could keep those apart now. It's helpful for magicians and have them spaced far enough apart so it's affordable. A lot of magicians have to choose 1 or 2 only to go. And these conventions are for magicians, but quite often many of us are busy. doing.
That's true, which is why the Magic Live, I think, is well attended, because that's something that happens during the weekdays, because a lot of people are working on weekends and they can't make that convention, but they can make that, let's say, Monday through Wednesday or something, but they can't for the normal weekends whenever they're going to be busier. And of course, this in 2022 will be in Quebec, will be FISM, which I assume you're going to be attending FISM.
That's huge too. Yeah, another great venue.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed FISM, and I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out for the first time in North America, particularly in Canada. I'm sure they're going to do a great job of it. But I was talking with someone just recently who had never been to a FISM, and I was saying, well, it's going to have a different feel regardless, because when you're in Europe, everything is kind of within driving distance, if you will. So I think a lot more Europeans would be attending the European event than they will be coming across to Quebec to see that. So I think mostly there'll be North Americans, specifically Americans and Canadians, who will be driving or flying into Quebec. So I think it'll be a large convention, but it'll be a little bit different kind of a feel from what the typical FISM has been. It was just like whenever they had it in Beijing and then again in South Korea. It was I didn't attend either of those, but I'm sure that had a different kind of an Asian feel with more people, again, locally, regionally, if you will.
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
I think we're likely to feel a more French motif.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Yes. Oui. And that's about all I know for that.
Bonjour.
That's right. Well, thanks. I'm glad you told us a little bit about the museum, kind of going in depth about a lot of the information over there. And as we start to close up, then tell us where people can contact you, or if they want to give a donation, be a benefactor, find out more information about what kind of perks will be available. How can they get in touch with you and find out more info?
Okay, AmericanMuseumOfMagic.com is the website. American Museum on Facebook. And personally, it's Jeffrey Allen, Jeffrey Allan, Magic. And that's, I do Instagram. If you're a magician, I'll friend you on Facebook.
I know in the past that you have done some wonderful walkthroughs of the museum during Zoom meetings and other virtual conventions and things, that you've been very helpful with that. So I would point people to going and looking at some of those things that have been filed that do show you kind of giving a tour of the way the museum looks currently. So
I also tour around and do my lecture on the history of magic as seen on television.
Oh, that'd be fascinating.
Yeah, I've been at a number of rings, Myrtle Beach, Wisconsin, Pigeon Forge. We were just in Cumberland Falls, Kentucky at the Unconventional Convention. I did my lecture there and we got to perform.
So do you show some clips or have some video that you show?
Yes, it's a totally different experience than a typical ring lecture or magician coming in.
Right.
I will show the 3 or 4 items that I have created. I don't hyper sell them or anything. They're available, but I just show those for fun, and then we move into the history of magic as seen on television phase.
Well, that's a whole other subject we could probably get into for some time if we want to. That sounds quite fascinating. Yeah,
I'm recognized as a TV historian, so in a different vein. But what I did was I brought that to my magic career and put them together and created this
great idea.
Presentation.
Cool. Well, of course, my podcast, as you know, is called The Magic Word. So this is the end. What would be your magic word or phrase?
Wow, my magic word. What do I? This is sad because people should have this ready to go. And I've heard you ask people this before, but
so it shouldn't be a surprise.
It shouldn't be a surprise. I think that my whole thing is I want to entertain people. I want to be a performer. John Maskelyne said, "It's about the performance, the art that makes it art."
It's about the performance that makes it art.
And that's where, yes,
I like that.
It's the performance that makes it an art. Yeah. So I'll go with that.
It's the performance that makes it art. Love it. Well, Jeffrey, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today and giving us a little background, talking about the museum and other things then as well. So until next time, thanks again. That was Jeffrey Allen, and this is Scotty out. Thank you, Jeffrey, for being my guest this week on the Magic Word Podcast. It was interesting to learn some information about the American Museum of Magic. I have, of course, been there on several occasions, but for those who haven't, perhaps this might give you a little bit of encouragement to go and make the trek to Marshall, Michigan to go and see it. It is pretty amazing. I also recommend if you go to the website, which is AmericanMuseumofMagic.com, there you will be able to learn more information about the virtual tours and other kinds of things if you can't make it there in person to go and see it. They have other ways of you being able to experience the museum yourself. So I encourage you to go and check out their website and follow them on Instagram then as well. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember that every performance is art, and it is our job to make every performance art. This is Scotty out.